students, I welcome you all to Current Affair lectures by Azad ICS Academy, and today we are going to study the current affairs or look into the current affairs of 5th March. So, before we go into the articles today, the answer for yesterday's question is which agreement has significantly contributed to growth of India-Australia economic relations? Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. So this is the agreement. So these are the other agreements that are there, but not related to Australia. So a lot of you may get confused between India-Australia Free Trade Agreement Treaty. No, this is incorrect. And the correct option is Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. Okay. Now, let us see the articles that are important for today. A finger on carbon button. Okay. So what is this exactly? It is related to science and technology, you can say, carbon intensity. So let us understand what is this carbon intensity. Carbon intensity measures the emission per output, helping track environment impact and climate change. So this is kind of a little bit of carbon, which wherein you're using nanotechnology and also science and technology is also involved, and a little bit of environment ecology is also involved here. So let us understand the meaning of what is carbon intensity. So it is nothing but it measures emission per output, which is going to help us track the environment impact and climate change process. Right? So carbon intensity is useful way to measure how much carbon in a particular sector is emitted and how it is increasing or decreasing over time. Usually sectors have their own way to measure the process, but carbon intensity is going to help us identify how much amount of carbon dioxide is emitted, okay, in a particular sector, and how we can increase it or how it is decreasing over a period of time. And this is going to help us track how it is going to impact the environment. So that is why carbon intensity becomes a very, very important topic here, right? So see, there are two things. One is called carbon footprint and carbon intensity. So carbon footprint refers to the total amount of greenhouse gases emitted directly or indirectly caused by an individual. But when it comes to carbon intensity, measures only the amount of carbon, not any other gases. But when it comes to carbon footprint, it is all the greenhouse gases. Okay. So carbon intensity measures how much carbon dioxide is emitted for a specific activity. So here it is not talking about, directly or indirectly. When it comes to carbon footprint, so you need to know carbon footprint is also telling us how much amount of greenhouse gases are released. But it is from all the sectors. But when it comes to carbon intensity, we are talking about how much amount of carbon is, emitted. So the steel sectors mainly focus on the number of tons produced annually. The medical insurance sector may focus on the number of claims successfully filled. And the HR services focus on how many hours unproductive work that they have done away with. The government of a country may also measure its own development tracking by GDP per capita income. In the world that warming rapidly and desperately needs to reduce its greenhouse emission, carbon intensity adjusts those existing metrics to include amount of carbon dioxide produced. So here we need to understand that carbon dioxide, how much amount of carbon dioxide is emitted that for that particular specific activity. That is being mentioned by this particular carbon intensity. For example, the carbon intensity of the steel sector can be measured as the number of tons produced per steel of carbon dioxide emitted. So if there is 1 ton of steel, how much amount of carbon dioxide is emitted? An entire country's carbon intensity can be understood by dividing the growth in GDP per capita by amount of carbon dioxide emitted, and so on. So like this, it is easier. So it helps us track emissions from industry, service, and entire country. Different sectors measure it based on the output, like steel production or insurance claim. Government tracks the carbon dioxide intensity using the GDP as per capita income and the emission. It adjusts the existing economic matrix to include environment impact as well. So lower carbon intensity means produce more or fewer emissions. So if the carbon intensity is low, means less amount of carbon dioxide is produced. It is crucial to fighting climate changes and reduce greenhouse gases. So it is very, very important for us because it is going to help us reduce our carbon dioxide emission and greenhouse gas emission. Recently, China said that it is It has lowered its carbon intensity by 3.4% in 2024, missing its target of 3.9. So they wanted to reduce it up to 3.9, but anyways, they have reduced it up to 3.4. Some economists have said that it's road ahead to difficult considering China has have carbon emission peaks before 2030. Anyways, this is one of the claims that China is basically trying to do. The next important topic that we have is valence line. How valence line explains the difference in the species across the continent. So this is line in, if you cross this line, the different set of species are present. And if you cross the other side of the line, there are different set of species. Okay. In 19th century, Alfred Valens noticed the shift in the composition of organism as they moved from Asia to Australia. So if you see Asia and if you see Australia, there's a difference in the species. He posted the invisible barrier in an ocean running between the islands of Bali, Lombok, striking north between Borneo and Swedish before curve southern Midanoya. So he is basically, he's talking about where all this valence line. So this red color line that you can see here, this red color line is the valence line. And he's saying that the species that are present here are different and the species that are present here are completely different. Okay. It's a distinct boundary that is there between, if they ask you, where is it? It is there between Asia and Australia, right? So species highlighted biodiversity shift due to historical continental movements and environmental factors. So here you see that the species that are present are completely different because of different reasons. So let us see what species that are present. The valence line is an invisible boundary between Asia and Australia, spreading distinct species on either side. So the species that are present on either sides are very different. For example, you can see kangaroos to cockatoos are synonymous with Australia and tigers and orangutans in Asia. So if you see in Australia, you find kangaroos. You do not find kangaroos in India or in Asia. Similarly, in tigers and orangutans are found in Asia and they are not found in Australia much. Both these continents boost rich biodiversity. They are also unique. Yet, simple popular way to understand this is separate gradedness has taken the shape of valence line. What is a valence line? In 19th century, the English nationalist Alfred Russel Valens noticed the dramatic shift in the composition of organisms have moved. So if you see that there is a shift, if you see to the organisms that are present in Asia and the organisms that are present in Australia, New Guinea and other islands nearby, he posted the invisible barrier in the ocean, later called the valence line, running between the different islands here. Okay. And to him, this line was like a fence between the two different kinds of animals on either side. Okay. So what is the different kinds of findings? Valens and other conducted 8 years of field work to carefully plot the line across many kilometers. So they have done this for many kilometers in the process, laying a foundation for modern biogeography. The study of how species are distributed and how they got there. Over years, the line has attracted considerable research interest. The valence line ties parties on the theories of evolution. So it is talking about how evolution must have happened, right? So here you can see Sulawesi, despite being very close to Borneo, has a mix of Asian and Australian species. Hosted unique species like, there are different species like Asian origin, dwarf cascus. There are different types of species that are present in different places. So this is what he's basically, trying to tell us over here, right? Now, the modern researchers also show that the valence line is simplified concept. Species movement depend on deeper environmental factors. Advanced technology like environmental or evolutionary modeling help understand species adaptation. So we will be able to understand the species adaptation based on these kind of lines or these kind of understandings itself. The Indo-Malayan region faces rapid habitat destruction, making species conservation a priority. Rather than redrawing boundaries, efforts should be focusing on protecting biodiversity and climate change and deforestation. So these are the things that we need to basically focus upon. Okay. The valence line. So you need to understand that valence line is nothing but it's an invisible line that is present between the Asia and Australia. And basically what happens between Asia and Australia is whatever animals are present in Asia are not present in Australia, and whatever animals are present in Australia are not present in Asia. This kind of a segregation is basically done, and that is what this concept is all about. Right? So next. So here you can see what did the Valens find in Solish. This is just an example here. What does ancient past say? The line is a part of Malayan archaeology, the geography complex region with more than 2005 or 25,000 islands. Valens figured that Swedish animals distributed could be explained if some of these islands have been joined with the Asian mainland is in the past. So he says that This kind of distribution is happening maybe because this island was a part of Asian mainland. As the island broke off and drifted apart, the ancestral species on the island would have become isolated and evolved independently, creating a distribution Williams saw in 19th century. Since then, the researchers have expanded the understanding by ongoing further back in time. Millions of years ago, Australia broke off and drifted from Antarctica. The ocean emerged and a growing gap of water currents in the depth cooler of the planet. Meanwhile, Australia drifted to the north into Asia, creating a volcanic island of Indonesia. Various studies found that the variation in the monsoon, aridity, and sea levels between these islands have served island species to adapt to new climatic conditions and diverse until as recent of 4 million years ago. The movement of continents is one of the part of the puzzle. The study published in 2023 revealed that another when scientists took a closer look at how these species across the Valence line were related, they analyzed that 2,000 species of birds, animals, reptiles, amphibians. Despite global cooling, they found Malayan tropical islands stayed warmer and wetter than Australia. Thus, Asian fauna used island to steep stones to Australia, wherein Australian species have evolved in cooler climate. See, please understand this. I think all of you have studied basic geography. In the geography, you have something which is called as plate tectonics. In the plate tectonics, we know that the plates are basically moving. And like this, we have seen that Australia has come towards the southern part a little bit. And that is why the climatic conditions are not as warm as when it comes to Asia. And because of these kind of climatic conditions, or maybe there were some islands which were together a part of Asian mainland, and over a period of time, they are now separated, and hence the organisms, they are the same organisms, maybe their adaptation is different depending on the climatic condition. Automatically, there will be a difference, and that is what valence line is all about, right? So now let us see the question for today. What does the carbon intensity mean? Try to identify the correct option here, okay? Because there is a lot of confusion when it comes to carbon intensity and carbon footprint. So don't get confused. This is basically to a specific sector, okay? And this is overall. So that is a major difference you can see. Okay. Try to put your answers in the comment section. I'll see you guys in tomorrow's lecture.